This is Christian from Market Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Wednesday, February 5th. Risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purpose only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. Everything that we're going through is for education purposes only. So, took a little bit of a delay there, but we did get Nvidia earnings that came out. Everybody was waiting for that. I don't know if they still go out to bars these days. Remember, I think it was a couple of years ago at this point, probably 2 years ago, where everybody went out to happy hour to watch the Nvidia earnings, and that kind of marked the short term top in Nvidia. But I don't know. I haven't heard anything about that recently. I think, like I said, I think that was about 2 years ago, where people were going to a bar for like a watch party. That's yeah, that's usually how that goes. Yeah, so they beat earnings, first quarter revenue. 76 to 79, estimated 72. Data center revenue 62 versus 60. Um, Computing demand is growing exponentially. Positive, a lot of positives at this point. I think everybody expected them to beat earnings. The question of just how much, in terms of that. So here's where we are. Let me go to this chart here for NVIDIA. And I thought that this was interesting because really, for the most part of this year, Nvidia has not really moved. Here's where listen. We can laugh at these things because this is what's the most. This is what i- is one of the things that fascinates me about markets is just different things that will happen, or surprising things that happen in the market. And up until recently, up until the last couple of days, you could argue that Nvidia has essentially been flat for the year. But when you look at the whole semi ETF, SMH, it's up about 15% year to date. So I thought that this was, I didn't know if today was about FOMO, because today was the highest point for the year. And I'm like, geez, is that just the FOMO run into the earnings report? Or are they, or is it this basically the start of a move? Because, if I would have just seen this today and with any symbol, I would say, hey, this is a nice breakout of this consolidation and it's a point to go long. But you really don't know. A lot of times, some of these moves are buy the rumor, sell the news. We'll see. We're not out of, this is just basically the first reaction. We did come up and take that one VPOC, right? So we rallied right to that. Remember, the VPOCs are like magnets, right? The price, once it gets out of a range, recent range, it begins to look for where there's been a lot of volume previously, and there's been a lot of volume right at this 201 level. So that's where we gravitated towards, and then I would think maybe from the earnings call or something other might get the stock to move. But yeah, I mean, it's just incredibly interesting to see the stock get to new highs for the year. Just the day before it reports earnings, it breaks out of that, out of the little consolidation. So that's the question. Are we going to be able to see this name outperform now? Well, I don't know. I think I'll give you my thought, and I could be wrong. I still think that there's better places to go, because other places, and I think there's the reason why other names in the semis have done so much better. Here, I'll bring this up for you so that you could see. What's the right screen I want to show here? Maybe this one. All right, this is just SMH, and we could look at, of course, some other names. Whoops, I got the wrong. I just try to enhance the wrong screen. Let's try this again. All right, so this is this is year to date. Teradyne's up 70. This is just crazy. By the way, 19%. I was wrong. For some reason, I saw 15% earlier. The SMH ETF, it says 19% year to date. Teradyne, Applied Materials, Micron. I mean, these are amazing. Again, this is another thing that blows my mind. These are amazing numbers for a year, let alone where we are at this point, which is not even 2 months into the year. ASML's up 42%. STM is up 33%. So Nvidia's right here is up was up. This may not show today's today's data, but because I saw Nvidia up more than that earlier today, so maybe I was taking a live screenshot. So, and I think the reason why this is because Nvidia is involved in all the circular financing deals, right? They've got themselves involved in that, and I don't think they're going to perform like the other names. Right? That's my take, and I think anything with the circular financing stuff is probably going to continue to underperform a bit. But listen, I could definitely be wrong. We could look at XSD as well. This one you've got this is the equally weighted ETF, and clearly you've got some other different names in here. You've got Lattice Semis up 37, Skywater is up 58%. Again, Micron up 50%. Just incredible, some of the numbers, and then the bigger numbers. Sorry, some of the bigger companies, not bigger numbers, bigger companies. Broadcom down 4%. You got First Solar. It's weird. This ETF is kind of weird. You got First Solar in here, which is not a semi name, but that's the state. That's the State Street equally weighted semiconductors ETF. All right, so that's the story there. You know, here's the SMH ETF, which oh, sorry, I got the wrong screen up again. It's been a long day. Um, yeah, here's the SMH ETF breaking out. So this is what's in the TTG global trend portfolio, and it's outperformed. I've gotten a couple questions because I moved this, and I'll share the video that I did in the beginning of the year, maybe over the weekend. I'll talk about why I moved out of in my the TTG trend portfolio. I changed the name to the TTG global trend portfolio, and I changed the philosophy of having single stocks versus ETFs. And the reason why I made that change was just because I thought it just became harder to be a single stock picker. And, people think, oh, I posted something earlier today on XME, and somebody said to me, well, can you show me some individual names? Sure, I could do that with the names that I like, but don't discount that some of the best moves are happening just by owning the whole group. For some reason, investors shy away from this concept, right? They feel like they've got to pick the single stock moves. And I get it. There's a lot of books, How to Make Money in Stocks is a great book, right? And they talk about stocks. They don't talk about ETFs. But I tell you, the ETF is up uh, according to Bloomberg, almost 20% year to date versus Nvidia, which of course, is probably the one of the better companies out there in the space, is only up 5. So do you really want to be a stock picker in all situations? Right? Here's another one too. Now again, it would have been better to pick some of the individual names, but this is the telecom ETF. Again, I show these almost in every day, but it's just been so impressive to pick some of these, to just go ahead and pick some of the groups via the ETF, right? And of course, that's been the situation versus EWY, for example, which looks very toppy, by the way. EWY, the South Korea ETF. See if I can get to the data point for that. What that's up to. Let me just plug in. I want to give you a real 53%, right? So, I got to pick a single name, or you could just pick the ETF. Now, of course, there's two very big names that are driving this whole ETF, which is Samsung and SK Hynix. But uh, hey, that's huge, and I wish I put all my a bigger portion of my portfolio into EWI, but it's just amazing. So let's talk a little bit about what happened in software today, because that was one of the biggest gainers. And I'm going to make a statement here. This article that got so much attention the other day, and good for them. They got attention from everybody. Everybody mentioned this post that they wrote, about a 30-minute read, I think, from this company called Centrini, who was big on social media before, and they got a whole bunch of press for this. Good for them. I'm sure they're going to make a lot of money off that post. Now, let's talk about the real implications with it. Do I think that their post is extremely late? I do. And I think all of those things, like if you've been, in our trading room, if you've been a part of anybody's trading room, probably that you've known that AI has been disruptive. It's been disruptive towards, the transport companies pulled back one day on a threat about that. The financials have pulled back on a possible insurance, uh, life insurance disruptions. We've seen multiple groups get disrupted. So, where does that Centrini post come out? Right after software, how much is let's continue with this game of up and down for the year. IGV is down 23%. Did they come out with this post here? Did they come out with this post here? Did they come out with the post here? No, they came out with the post all the way down here. And the price action has already told you everything probably that you read or went through in that 30-minute read. Right? All you needed to do is look at the chart and the price action, and it's already in there and it's priced out. Now, from a contrarian standpoint, you could say, because I like that there's a bullish divergence here. Right? If you're familiar with like an RSI divergence, the price made a new low, but the RSI did not. So it's possible that the low is in. Considering I'm thinking that Centrini post is a contrarian buy signal. Right? It scared everybody. All of a sudden, all those uninformed folks on CNBC started quoting it. Right? So scared them, and it took another leg lower here. But I think I'm not ready to call that this is, and I don't really like to buy things in downtrends, but it's very similar to, a publication like Barron's. And again, I have nothing against any of these people, Barron's or the Economist, where they put something on the cover, and the story has already been out there for months if you've been paying attention to the market. And sometimes when they put that on the cover, it ends up being a contrarian signal, and that's the end of the decline, or that's the end of the up move. So that's what I think for now. Um, so again, I'm not hating on them. They're going to do just fine. They got quoted by everybody. I'm sure they're going to make a lot of money for that post. But do I think it's probably about 2 months too late? Yeah, I do. So let's go through. So what do I think about this group? I still have a trade on for IGV, and that's the only way I'm playing it. I had a call spread on, and I actually took off the short end of the spread, and maybe this reverts back. Now, I would watch a couple of these names. Salesforce is a big name here, and they're down after hours. They did announce a $50 billion pullback, but I would pay attention. Like, even if you're not trading this name, like me, I'm not trading CRM, but watch what it does tomorrow. If it happens to pop back, what does that mean? That means probably that the bad news is priced in. If it continues to go lower, then you know that it's not priced in. For example, look at what happened with Workday today. Right? Again, this is what's always interesting about the market, right? With a bad earnings report, look at what the stock did. Right? Initial reaction lower, but it came back. Now, it didn't go up like crazy, but the fact that it closed green on the day, I would say that means that we're closer to the bad news being priced into the market. Right? I'm going to say that concept one more time. Right? Something is going down, and there's more bad news released, and the stock continues to get hit. Right? Them that's not done going down. On the other hand, if there's bad news that's out there and the stock tries to go down and it doesn't, and it actually rallies, that means it's already priced into the stock. All right, a couple other things, but I there's a lesson here too, because I think so many people want to go out and buy the dip in this stuff. And I've just learned over time that it usually takes a while after there's been a big move to the downside. Again, this is still oversold, so I think it could bounce up to the 20-day moving average, but that's all I'm kind of thinking for now, right? Because it's hard for things to really reverse. And here's the 20-day moving average. So here's where I think the bounce can continue maybe up to 84 in IGV. Now, let me give you an example. This is a stock that I was looking at today, because again, I don't think younger, newer investors think about these types of things. Here's a stock called FRMI. Why am I showing this stock? Just to illustrate a point. Right? This is the stock from when it went IPO, going down, down. Notice it tried to bounce a couple times, down, down. Now, look at what it did after that. After the last move down, notice that it based, right? And that takes time. This was in the middle of December, right? So it based for a few months. And now it's beginning. Notice how the moving averages and the price is getting back above the moving averages. Right. So this is a pretty like this is a fast situation. Sometimes basis could happen for a year, sometimes longer, before price actually is able to recoup and start heading up again. Right. It sometimes so again it could take a lot longer than this, but I thought this is a good example. This is how it happens most of the time. And the book, if you ever want to read more about that, here's the book that I always quote for this. Right. This is the How to Make Money in Bull Market, Profiting in Bull and Bear Markets by Stan Weinstein. He goes through stage analysis, right? Stage four, right, is the decline. Stage one, I believe, is base, and stage two is breaking out of the base. That's how the majority, again, nothing is 100%, but that's how the majority of stock recoveries happen. So you go back to IGV. Yeah, it could bounce some more because it's oversold. Do I think it's doing a V recovery? Absolutely not. Right. And, you know, notice how the 200-day moving average is all the way up here. So, in any event, that was the big move today. So, that's what I wanted to talk about. Let's talk about a couple single stocks for a minute. I'm now out of SanDisk. This could be a huge mistake because I've done very well this month with these stocks. But I got out of SanDisk yesterday. I just didn't like that the last couple days it looks a bit tired. But this is a name with huge revenue growth. So I'm going to continue to pay attention to it. I can get back involved. You could see that the last couple days, like this morning, it tried to rally all the way up to 660 and it failed. Yesterday, it tried to rally too, and it failed at six, right around the same level, right, right up here. So for now, it's maybe it's just taking a breather, and that's fine. I did sell out of my light position. I felt once I sold out of it, I felt um, really like FOMO as soon as I sold out of it today, because these names have been just darlings. But I said, you know what? I don't like when a stock does this is when the stock was full green bar. I got out of it because I don't like when a stock has moved up this much, and then you have this big gap up like that. So we'll see what it does. And I at this point, I want some consolidation. I wanted to put in another one of these, right, where it just pauses and goes sideways a couple days, right? All right, so that's where this is now. So again, that's what I would be looking for this. But again, just to go through these names, they've just been absolutely on fire. Here's GLW was up another 5%. It's just remarkable what a market like, and how many people have been. The thing that's so crazy about this market too is that people have been talking about the names that are going down and the FANG names, and so focused on that. Let me just tell you, for the last over the last month, Light was a $380 stock. Right, the beginning. I'm talking about the beginning of the month. It's 720 bucks. So if you're focused on the FANG names and you're missing out on all this stuff, I just can't believe it. I've said it for a while in each one of these end of day videos that don't get focused on the wrong stuff. Don't have an emotional attachment to stocks. There's no reason to. And the more that you are bogged down with something that's going down, you're missing out on all this stuff. Teradyne, which I got long, I think on Friday, made a new high today, up 4%, up another 4% today. So I did more selling today. I didn't really even though the Qs were up 1.5% today, I'm not going to buy. I just don't think that I want to really get back involved in the FANG names. It was a day for the FANG stocks today, which is fine. These names, I wouldn't get so down on them either, like I've been, because they will bounce, right? Things don't fall in a straight line. Things don't go up in a straight line. So this was a big day for these names. Netflix. In case were wondering about whether or not this deal that they may have that they've announced with Warner Brothers, in case you had any doubt about whether that's a good deal or a bad deal for the stock, with more probability that they may do the deal with somebody else. Look at what Netflix did today. It was up 6%. The deal is not good for them. Right? It's not good for a company that size to now be, instead of organically growing, having to buy some other big competitor. Regardless of the synergies and so forth, the price action is telling you so much. Is there anything that I want to go here in terms of the charts? But like I said, I added trades on Thursday, on Friday of last week. Today, I was selling into strength. Um, what else? So here's Google. We go through a couple of these just to see if there's any change. It's still below the 50-day moving average. And I think they're going to struggle. Microsoft had a nice day today. Let's see. Microsoft's way below. Oops, that's the wrong chart. I was like, that is a little bit worse, but it's below the value area for the year. Could it bounce? Sure, it could bounce all the way up to another 4%, 419 maybe, but I think it gets rejected there. Just my thought. Again, I'll let the price action decide. I tried trading this today, XME. I didn't get what I was looking for today. It kind of gave back some gains. The metals and mining space started to look pretty good to me. I woke up hearing about lithium prices. Unfortunately, I looked at ALB yesterday. I did not pull the trigger on it. I had mentioned it right in the beginning of the day, right at the open yesterday, and I did not trade it. So it's one of those things where you feel like, you missed it, and I certainly didn't chase it today. But I did go long XME because I like what FCX looks like. I like SCCO. All right, there's a couple names there. I took another profit target in Form. All right, another stock that I said it earlier on in social media. Hardly anybody talking about this name. Just an amazing break higher. Right. So how do we identify these names? Right. Well, number one, just by scanning through Finviz. Right. Scanning through Finviz, looking for names that are at their 52-week high or at their 20-day high. Right. I try to run that scan once a week. I also build out our strong earnings lists. So any name that has a strong earnings reaction, right, I put it on the list. Inform, I knew from the beginning of this year looked really good. Right from the start of the year, this name was hot out of the gate, and then I noticed, like, when they had earnings, they had a strong earnings report, and that's where I got involved in them, and they've made some really nice gains. But and then I cycle through that earnings list. I also run a screener that looks at names that have had. Outside of the names that I put together, I look at names that are growing over 15% sales and earnings quarter over quarter, right? If you're doing those types of things, the names jump out to you, right? You're not only going to see individual names, you're going to see groups, right? Just like we've seen all the optical names, the light, COHR, Sienna, Corning, right? It's going to jump out. Same thing with the memory names. By doing simple things like that, you're going to find the strength, right, and find what's changing in the market, right? So uh, I always could figure out, like, whether it's somebody on TV or somebody in social media, that they're not doing their homework. If you're not scanning a couple days, at least once a week, to figure out what's at the 52-week high list, then you're not understanding what's working in this market and what's not. So that's it, guys. I'll leave it there for now. Like I said, I didn't do much today. I was busy taking profits on some of the trades that I put on towards the end of last week, and then we'll see how this sets up with Nvidia. Right, and there's also a number of other names that have put some good earnings. I just wanted to, before I ended here, so we're kind of bleeding here a little bit, which doesn't surprise me. It's just difficult for Nvidia to kind of hold the gains. Again, other names and the group are going to do better, I think, um, than Nvidia. So again, I try to stay open to all outcomes. Let's look at Bitcoin here for a minute. Right, there was this story out. How long is the video? Oh, I'm already gone on for 24 minutes. This is a nice move by Bitcoin. Right, notice it's also above the 5-day moving average, like software. There's a lot of crypto names that are in that IGV ETF, by the way, which are contributing. But this is a nice move above the 5-day moving average. Let's see if it wants to continue in base. You do have a little bit of you've got about a 2-week base going on here. Let's see if it can begin to kind of get out of that. But I would watch overhead supply.